Hey geeks and gamers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to install Linux on the all AMD PC, and we're going to run some games through Steam natively and with help of the Proton layer. Let's see how well that works. Roll the intro. With regard to the Linux distribution, I decided to go with Ubuntu. It should offer us a great out-of-the-box experience, should deliver us all drivers with regard to the AMD graphics. It's a modern Linux distribution, well maintained. So all we need is a USB stick to put Ubuntu onto, boot from it and install it. Let's do it. Okay, let's quickly go over the specs of the PC we're going to install Linux on. The CPU is a Ryzen 5500 6 cores 12 thread CPU on a B550 motherboard. Graphics wise, we run a Radeon RX 6600, a budget graphics card, but Ubuntu comes with free drivers for Radeon cards, which is awesome. 16 gigs of RAM are plenty enough for gaming, and with regard to the disks, we have a 512GB SSD for Windows, and I just put in another empty 512GB SSD where we will install Linux on. Alright, let's get cracking. Head over to ubuntu.com and choose Download from the top menu. We want the Ubuntu desktop, the latest version. And here we go. Smash that download button on the 22.04 version. And save the file somewhere where you can find it again. Once the download has finished, you need a tool to write the image to the USB stick so we can boot from it. I use Berliner Etcher, the link is in the description below. Berliner will try to choose the USB stick for you, but make sure it is the right drive by clicking in the center of the tool and choose your USB stick explicitly. Now click the Flash From file and choose the Ubuntu image file we just downloaded. Now we are all set and good to go. Smash the flash button. The procedure will take some time. It will flash the image onto the stick and make it bootable, and finally verify everything was written correctly to the stick. So just be patient. As you can see, I just fast forwarded this procedure in the video, so we don't have to wait like 10 minutes. You can now safely unplug the USB stick. Time to boot from the USB stick we've just created. You have several options. When you turn on your PC, it might display a key to press for boot menu, or you can go enter the BIOS and select the USB stick as a boot device. But a super easy option is just to tell Windows to boot from the USB stick. To do so, click Restart from the power menu while holding down the Shift key and wait for the restart. Sorry for the wrong colors in the next minute or so in the video. My HDMI splitter had a bad connection to the capture card, but you should be able to read everything. At the next screen, just select Use a device and click our created USB stick. From the menu that pops up, choose Try or Install Ubuntu. From here, the system will boot into a live Ubuntu system. Now we can install it. Click Install Ubuntu, and the system will guide you through the installation progress. Choose your correct keyboard layout, that is important, and click Continue. In the next step, make sure to also mark the checkbox for third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware and media formats. This should make sure that all your hardware works properly, even if it requires proprietary drivers. Next, allow Ubuntu to install alongside the Windows Boot Manager. It will also add a boot menu for you to choose from, whether you want to boot into Windows or Linux when you turn on or restart your PC. The installer automatically found the empty second drive I added to the PC and wants to install Linux on there, so yeah, I go ahead. But you, please make sure that this is the correct drive, or set up the partitions manually and choose manually where you want to install Ubuntu to. Worst case, you overwrite your Windows or data partition. I take no responsibilities for you choosing the wrong drive, partition, whatever. You have been warned. A good data backup is also always a great idea. So click continue when you think you're ready. The next steps are really simple. Choose your time zone and create a user. Just add a password you remember to the user for safety reasons, and the installation will start. This will take some minutes depending on your PC, of course. Let's fast forward this part of the video, and you will be prompted with an installation complete window. Perfect. Hit that Restart Now button. You will now be asked to remove the USB stick and press enter. Do so. As you can see, I also fixed the HDMI issue with the splitter. Awesome. At the boot menu, choose our freshly installed Ubuntu and the system will boot up. Now log in and quickly skip through that initial dialog. Choose whatever you like or think is appropriate with regard to reports and location services. At the last screen, you can directly start the Ubuntu software management tool to check for and install any missing updates. Go to the Updates tab and hit Update All and reboot the system, just in case that there was a kernel update. When the system has rebooted, log in and start the Ubuntu Software Manager again. Search for Steam and click Install. As an alternative, and as we are in Linux, you can start a terminal and type sudo apt install steam and confirm. This is my preferred way of installing and managing software under Linux. No matter which way you installed Steam, we can now start it. Just click on the application icon in the bottom left corner and click on Steam to start it. The Steam client will probably update itself again. We know this from Windows, so nothing to worry about. Just wait for it to finish. And after a short moment, you will be presented with a login or register pop-up. As I already have a Steam account, I will quickly log in. And here it is. We run Steam in all its glory under Linux. It's time to install some games and start benchmarking. For games that run natively under Linux, so to say have a Linux port, you will be prompted with a familiar blue install button. Just click it and the game will install just like under Windows. But what about games that have no Linux port? The install button is just grayed out. Here we make use of Proton, a compatibility layer for Windows games to run on Linux-based operating systems. Proton is developed by Valve itself and developers over at Codeweavers. It is a patched and modified version of Wine, which is another Windows compatibility tool. Proton itself is optimized to run games. So let's say we want to install and run Red Dead Redemption 2 under Linux. Simply search for the game in your library and right-click on the name in the sidebar. Click Properties in the menu and then Compatibility in the new window that pops up. Tick the checkbox to use a compatibility tool to run this title and leave it set to Proton Experimental, which should always provide you with the latest version of Proton. When you now close this window, the install button will have turned blue and you can just click it to install your favorite game, just like under Windows. Okay, it is benchmark time. How will games run under Linux compared to Windows? We will test a native Linux title against that one natively under Windows and of course also titles that require Proton. I will show parts of the benchmarks in a split screen for you to directly compare the numbers, and in the final verdict we will talk about the results. Let's get cracking. First off is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which also runs natively under Linux. In the following split screens of the benchmarks, games under Ubuntu Linux will be on the left side and Windows on the right hand side. Yes, I'm not showing you the average numbers and the results for all these tests yet. All this will be covered in my final verdict at the end of this video. Next up is F1 2020. This title requires Proton to run under Linux.
Position on lap 1, that's not great, but it's not terrible. Stay focused. DRS now available.
Next up is Red Dead Redemption 2. You can see the quality settings here in the video. Just pause and set up your game accordingly if you want to compare it. Okay, let's run the benchmark.
Heard the damn government is taking people from their homes, messing with their minds, and turning them on their own families. Well, I'll be. Well, I love all of you.
On the wrong side of the law.
Now that looked quite interesting, didn't it? Let's wait for the final verdict. Okay, next up is Wolfenstein Youngblood at the Mein Leben preset, which is the highest preset possible. Okay, time for the final verdict. Let's start with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a native title to Windows and Linux. Linux pulls ahead here by 15% higher frame rate numbers. This is impressive and shows how well a AAA title native to Linux can run. Next, F1 2020. Running only via Proton, the Linux performance stays behind the Windows average FPS numbers by almost exactly 20%. Don't get me wrong, 138 FPS average at the highest preset at 1080p is still impressive. Wolfenstein Youngblood is much closer together. Also running via Proton, the Riverside benchmark only pulls ahead on Windows by 6%. Oddly enough, the lab benchmark falls behind by 15% under Linux. I have no idea why that happens. Let's roughly agree on an average of 10% more FPS on Windows in this title. Not too bad, Linux, not too bad. Last but not least, Red Dead Redemption 2 came out with a big surprise. Linux pulls ahead by 7.5%, although the game runs via Proton. I matched all the settings and double-checked, but I can't find a mistake on my side. Take note that I ran the game via Vulkan anyway, which is highly supported and makes it easy for Proton. I avoided DirectX here. Perhaps that helped. So, all in all, don't forget, take the results with a grain of salt. These were the free drivers included in Ubuntu. There are downloadable drivers on the AMD website, but not yet for Ubuntu 22.04, only for version 20.04. So these might and should bump up the performance under Linux when they become available even further. Honestly, I see no problems playing these titles under Linux, performance-wise. So, can we now all switch to Linux? Not yet. Many titles use proprietary copy protections or anti-cheat tools for multiplayer games that will just not run, even through Proton, under Linux and will get you kicked out of the game or it will not even start up. We have come a long way, and these results give me hope that Proton will further enhance and evolve, and perhaps one day running anti-cheat tools properly. It was a long journey, but the best part is yet to come. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Also, leave in the comments down below which game you want me to test under Linux. I will also make another video when the proper AMD drivers are released for Ubuntu 22.04. So, stay tuned and stay safe. See you in the next one. Alpha over and out.